Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. How's everyone going? We have some more spoilers from Wave 3 of X-Wing for the Vulture Droid expansion pack. Now, it is worth pointing out that a lot of the stuff in this article actually is stuff we already knew because the Vulture Droid is coming out in 2 packs, in this separate pack and also in the Servants of Strife squad pack. So, not a whole heap of new stuff to talk about, but there is a couple of unique elements you get in this expansion pack, and I think that's actually worth pointing out before we look at these spoilers. If you just want to get a whole heap of Vulture Droids, you do have to be consciously aware that you can't just buy a whole heap of the squad packs if you happen to need something specifically from this pack. The squad pack only costs about the same price as 2 Vulture Droids if you have a look at the MSRP. So it's very tempting just to go, well, I may as well buy all of those and get all the extra cards and Belbelubs and everything. But it's not that simple. In the Vulture Droid pack, we actually have a couple of unique upgrades, pieces of cardboard, and 1 unique pilot card. At least that's the indication we have here from the spread. Indeed, let's actually go through these pilot cards so I can tell you what I'm talking about. First up, we had the Trade Federation drone and Separatist drone spoiled at Initiative 1 and 3 as generics. No requirements in terms of how many of these you can field, they're completely unlimited. There are 1 pip, 2 pip, 3 pip cards here, which you can only field as 1 ofs, 2 ofs, or 3 ofs, or less. Now we did have this pilot revealed here as well, DFS 311. Initiative 1, at the start of the engagement phase, you may transfer 1 of your Calculate tokens. I guess the key thing I like about this pilot is how well they work with the energy shell charges. If you happen to have a whole heap of Vulture Droids, some of them have the charges, it means you have 1 pilot that can provide your other pilots with Calculate tokens if they need to do things like special maneuvers or barrel rolls or something like that. Seems like you give yourself a nice bit of versatility there. Being able to do this at range 0 to 3 is very, very lenient. I always felt that the energy charges was a pretty easy weapon to use anyway because you only need to take Calculate action. Now you don't even have to do that. Which means the Vulture Droids have a pretty consistent 3 red dice attack if you can manufacture it correctly. Now, it'll depend how much these cost. There's no limitations on this, which leads me to think that it's not going to be the cheapest thing in the world. Actually, we did see a missile in this article which does have a hard limit on the amount you can use, but it's not 1, which is very odd for a missile. But just capping this off for the time being, I think this pilot, alongside the energy shell charges, is absolutely something to look out for. It just seems too versatile and too easy to use to not give it the respect it's due. Now, apart from that, we had all the generic pilots, the Precise Hunter, the Hall Shell prototype. We did get this new missile as well, the Dischord Missiles, which you are hard limited to 3 of, which is kind of weird. I'll just comment on that briefly before we look at the card here. I get the impression that because it's hard limited to 3, it may be slightly undercosted as to what we may expect. Perhaps FFG's testing just proved, well, if we have like 4, 5, 6 of this, it's very problematic. But if we only have 3, there's at least a degree of agency to outfly it, which could make sense, I suppose. On the Separatists, at the start of the engagement phase, you may spend 1 Calculate token and 1 charge to launch 1 Buzz Droid Swarm using a 3 bank or forward. This card's charge cannot be recovered. Now, currently there is no way to recover this charge. The Hyena Bomber, I think, has the reload, so in Wave 4 that will be a possibility. But in that regard, it's the exact opposite of the energy shell. And given the power of this, I can understand where they're coming from. If we take a look at the Buzz Droid Swarm, which is what that cardboard token represents, it's one of these little sort of not quite a ship, not quite a bomb tokens. Initiative 0. After an enemy ship moves through or overlaps you, relocate to its front or rear guides, which you can see in this picture here, so you guys have an idea about what that would look like. You cannot overlap an object this way. If you cannot be placed at either set of guides, you and that ship suffer 1 damage, which in the case of the Buzz Droids would destroy them. Engagement phase. At your initiative, each enemy ship at range 0 suffers a critical damage. Now, in terms of what these guys do in terms of movement, this is very strange. Because at first thought, I thought, oh, hang on, they must move around with the ship that they're on, which they kind of do, kind of don't. If you put it in the rear guides, it means that that ship can just fly away. If you put it in the front guides, it means that the ship that these guys are attached to must then refly over them, and then the buzz droids just moves onto that ship again. So it's very difficult to get rid of if that's the tactic that you use. And the only way to get rid of them is, well, to either ignore them if you don't want to lose shots, but you basically have to shoot them. Or you fly in such a way that you have to be near a rock, and say you have the rock in your forward guides and you're forcing your opponent to put the buzz droids on the back of your ship, and then you're flying over a rock the next turn, but it means you can fly away from the buzz droids. It seems like there's going to be a lot of mind games with these guys, but you have to appreciate the amount of upside. Forcing the ship and potentially other ships that you're touching to suffer 1 critical damage is no joke, but this does happen at Initiative 0. So your opponent can shoot these guys off with another ship, unless the ship that they're on has the Zeb crew or is Captain Oikem. However, having said all of that, you're still forcing your opponent to go down and attack. And if that means that they lose the opportunity to shoot one of your other ships, that feels very, very much worth it. And from that point of view, I'm very curious to see how much these guys cost. Forcing your opponent to lose an attack is no joke. It's a fundamental way of winning games of X-Wings. If you guys are familiar with First Edition, for those of you who were around then, the power of the damage card Blinded Pilot. We know that losing attacks is frankly crippling in X-Wing. So it seems like these guys have a lot of upside. It seems no matter what kind of effect that they inflict upon your opponent's ship, even though that they have the agency to choose what that effect is, seems very, very powerful. Very curious to see what these guys are going to be costed. I think amongst all the different effects they have, the fact that you can only field 3 of them leads me to be very unsure about what these are going to cost. Be very cool to see what happens there. And in terms of new stuff, that is it. It seems like that's everything spoiled from this pack. If you'd like to see the rest of the content from this pack, you can check out the videos on the original reveal of the Clone Wars wave, all the pilot cards from the Servants of Strife. I'll put the annotations for those up here so you guys can see those. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. Please consider supporting my Patreon. It means the world. Patreon is literally the difference between me being able to make these videos week in, week out. So thank you so much to everyone that has supported that so far, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.